Having trouble focusing? And how have you been sleeping lately? I asked my friend Spear to join me today to talk about solar flares and the physical and spiritual implications of them. If you want a glimpse of the bigger picture, then stay tuned. Welcome to Evolving Humans. I'm your host, Julia Marie, and this podcast is for visionary people like you who are exploring the true nature of reality and want to contribute to the global awakening. You seek to deepen the connection to your multidimensional self so that you can live a more conscious life. Thanks for continuing to support Evolving Humans with your subscriptions and your shares. I'm Julia Marie, and today we're going to be talking about solar flares in general and how you can mitigate some of the effects on your physical body. My friend Spear is a gifted intuitive who offers tarot readings for individuals seeking clarity about their life situations. You can find more information about Spear on his guest page that I've set up on evolvinghumanspodcast.com. It's been a while, Spear. Welcome back to Evolving Humans.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
You know, I have a selfish reason for wanting to have this discussion with you today. My sleep cycle has been really crappy for weeks now, and I'm feeling more joint pain than normal. Since I'm relatively certain I'm not the only one having these experiences, I thought it'd be a good idea to have a conversation. So here we are. And I noticed an interesting icon in the search box when I turned on my laptop today. It's an image of the sun with 3 blue arrows pointing towards the earth. And I wonder, could that be related to our topic today?
I would think so. Sunday, March 17th, they are reporting that a coronal mass ejection occurred, and a ribbon of dark plasma was the result of this. And this is supposed to intersect with Earth on today, 3/20, or tomorrow, 3/21. And they said it would also cause a minor G1 geomagnetic storm. This could also spark auroras and possibly make the aurora borealis more visible to more of the planet. It's also intersecting with the vernal equinox. Some of the thoughts that it would stress out the magnetic fields are being put out there, but not rip them or tear them, since the sun will be directly pointed at the center of the planet. I also went over to spaceweather.gov to see some of the images of this, and it's pretty magnificent, I have to say.
Well, I do know that spaceweather.gov is a great place to go if you're into following the activity on the sun at all. They always have the most current information and, like you said, really cool images.
Beautiful stuff.
Let's start with the basics. So what is a solar flare?
There are a lot of storms on the sun's surface, and they produce explosions, and these are called coronal ejections, coronal mass ejections, or CMEs for short. When these are cast off, they emit dark plasma, which isn't as visible as regular light, but they still have an impact. So they usually, when they go off, they shoot off into space and they sort of arc back down into the sun. They create these loops, and most of it returns back to the sun and affects or creates more solar storms. The big ones, when they peel off into space, they don't get pulled back down by the magnetic fields or the gravity fields and are sent off into space. Like 98% of the time, we're not even in the way. They're on the other side of the sun or outside of our orbit, so they just kind of scoot on past us. But this one seems to be not directly pointed at us, but we're going to catch like a tail end of it. When they impact the planet, most of it's absorbed by our atmosphere, and it sometimes charges our atmosphere where it would knock out communications, computer glitches, that sort of stuff. That has to be a pretty big coronal ejection, and it has to hit us almost smack on to really damage a lot of stuff nowadays. Decades and decades ago, back in when they first started putting up electrical wires, you could almost see when these things hit, they would spark the wires, which I think now they've sort of insulated them and done other things to keep that from happening.
Okay, so we don't have to panic that our whole grid is going to go down.
No, it would have to be massive.
Well, but we individually, however, we're bioelectric beings. Yes. So I would imagine that energy is going to be affecting our central nervous system and maybe our spiritual energy system too.
Yeah, it hits us the same way the tides affect us. We're bags of mostly water, so the tides affect us. The planetary gravitational fields affect us in that same sort of symbiosis. So when it comes in, it's like being supercharged. We're going to get inundated with this solar energy, and a lot of people, especially if you're very open or sensitive, you might have symptoms like nervousness, anxiety, being worried, feeling jittery, dizzy, irritable, sometimes even lethargic. Some people get nauseous and queasy. Some people even become forgetful, and others may experience like heart palpitations. There are some people who, over long periods of time, like if they're in the middle of it and it's happening, may have head pressure or headaches. Everyone's so different, and their ability to connect up and be open really makes, you might have one thing, you wake up and you feel anxious for no reason. But be mindful of that over the next day or so. They said, from what I looked around, and in the mornings, it tends to be more intense. I guess that when we face the sun, we're getting the remnants of that. So just be mindful, be able to step back if you're feeling really upset or excited or over-energized.
Now, I remember back in mid-2022, we had an intense round of solar flares. Mm-hmm. And I just want to say, if anybody thought that was the end of it, I hate to break the news to you,
right?
But we're still building up to what's called a solar maximum.
Right.
That's coming next year.
Right. And what I did read a little bit is generally right now the sun is in sort of a low period. So when these ejections happen, they're significant. So people will feel these things and will be affected by them. The other half of this is it may spontaneously cause releasing of lower emotions, sadness, anger, grief, and you may not know why. So that's another thing to be mindful of during this period, that you're doing some work. You're getting rid of some stuff. You're sort of being pushed to that next level. So just be ready for it. Be aware of how you're feeling. And I think that's a big thing to hit just in general. But right now, really be mindful.
I mean, I've always understood the sun has an 11-year cycle. And this midpoint of this 11-year cycle is 2024. Right. And from what I understand, I feel that 2024 is going to be let's just say it's going to be a Lollapalooza. The blessing of 2024, no matter what we're going to have to deal with, at least we'll know we're headed in the downside of this particular solar cycle. So we haven't hit the peak of it yet is the point I'm trying to make here. We just need to all hang in there. Right. For now, we just need to hang in there and ride the ride, because
right.
we chose to get the e-ticket. The other thing that struck me as interesting about it is when I looked up when this current 11-year cycle started, it began in December of 2019. And we all know what happened in 2020. And I want to point out that logically, now this is stream of consciousness, when this comes to me like this, I'm just going to say it. in 2020, the whole planet went silent right at the beginning of this solar cycle. And I, for one, find that extremely synchronistic. In other words, that whole mess wasn't an accident. On some level, maybe on a spiritual level, it was intentional. Gave humanity the opportunity to have some quiet time in order to make a very important decision, at least from the perspective of their soul. Am I ready to expand into more of my potential? Am I willing to open myself to the light code streaming onto the planet from our solar system's greatest source of light, which is, metaphorically speaking, a physical representation of the light from which we all come? Now, like I said, I still haven't fully processed my understanding of that insight, but can you kind of understand what I'm trying to say here?
Yeah. This super energized state we're getting, and probably going to get several more of these, it should, for a lot of people, awaken like a soul purpose. Finally put it in your path and say, okay, it's time to do this, and there's going to be no way around it. So there's going to be a lot of introspection. Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this what it's all about? Don't be afraid to look at those. And even though those answers may not have like a 2 + 2 = 4 equation, it's the search. So if you start feeling like you need to search. That's the answer to those questions. It's not actually 4 is the answer, or 42, or whatever you want to say it is. So be ready. I think a lot of people are going to get glimpses of where they could be. And the lesson I get shown all the time is, if you don't jump on the lesson train and get that done early and fast, that little speed bump you're hitting right now is going to be Mount Everest in 2 years, where you have to climb it by yourself and then back down again, maybe several times. So that's I just keep getting hit with that in my own personal life, that deal with these things when they come in. When you're questioning things, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Lean into it and really evaluate what you're doing and what connects you soul-wise. Where so many people are so much happier when they sort of accept that challenge and that next level. It's rewarding beyond most people's measure than just getting up, going to work, coming home, going to bed, getting up, that sort of thing. So keep your eyes open. You might be put in the path and maybe not know you're there, but it's gonna literally shine a light on it. A very big light.
Well, one of the things that I've been hearing a lot from clients lately is that exact thing. What is my path? What is my purpose? How do I make sure that I don't miss learning the important lessons in my life? How do I make time for spirit? And I just basically say, well, find a way to move through your life with more awareness and just observe. And that is a spiritual path of its own. Even if all you're doing is consciously registering your response to a situation, you're becoming more conscious. And if you're more conscious, you're more aware. So you're right. Lean into it to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
And know that the desire that you hold in your heart will get you where you need to go.
Right.
And don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah. And if it gets too overwhelming, ground yourself. It could be as simple as taking off your shoes and socks and walking in some grass or some sand or even just dirt. Like, get down to that basic level. Maybe lay down on the ground in your house, on your carpet, or on your tile floor. Feel the cold, feel the carpet. You really need to be able to connect up with the earth, because we're part of it. And so we're getting the solar energy. We need to connect up to the earth instead of being that tree struck by lightning. We're the lightning rod, and we're going to channel that energy into the earth and into our lives too. We really need to use this time and use this energy. It's being given to us. How many ancient people over the recorded history gave thanks back to the sun, gave prayers, burn some incense. Just the thought of this planet in this solar system is in the right degree and the right distance from the sun to manifest us and life. So give that back. I don't think we've found a planet yet officially that has life at this time. So thank you, universe, for allowing me to be here. Thank you, universe, for letting me witness these things, because how many people go through their life and don't ever think of solar flares or anything like that? So give yourself some credit too. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, you're seeking and you're looking and you're aware. So keep up the good work.
Exactly. I like that. Give yourself credit. Now, you intimated a little bit. You talked about what solar flares can cause, and some people call those things ascension symptoms.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And there's a couple that I've personally experienced of late, and that would include, that you didn't mention, and that would include the lovely sinus impact and the headaches and the flu-like symptoms and my poor sore joints. And of course, the disruption of one's sleep patterns.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
That's very important too.
Yeah.
Take naps.
Trust and believe if
now.
Yep. If you can, take a nap.
Yep.
And if you can, take two. So, yeah.
It's a healing process. It's a reorganization of consciousness. It's a lot of things. Don't think you're just sort of passing out and missing the world. You're really incorporating things into your being, cell structure, all that stuff.
Yeah. That's a good point. Don't judge your need for naps. They serve a purpose. It helps the body process and integrate everything that it's going through, and we need to allow it to, we need to not be so hard on our vehicles.
Yeah. Oh, I just remembered that next year is also a solar eclipse that's going to sweep through southern Missouri and Illinois, and like the one we had 6.5 years ago. Mm-hmm. So that's another point of raising consciousness and being activated, and the messages you get on during this time is going to be, I think it's going to be something significant.
Yeah, I that's why I want to save that conversation to where we can have a whole episode about it, because there's a lot of moving pieces of energy strands are going to come together during 2024. Getting back to the solar flares in general, so we've talked a lot about the negative impact, although you have brought in some of the positive impacts. And that whole, yes, we can get angry and we can release, but I'm hoping to put out there maybe a seed that perhaps maybe we should be grateful for this opportunity to let go of stuff that doesn't serve us anymore. Whatever that emotion is, just thank you. I'm having the opportunity to let this go, and know that what will happen is just see yourself as making room to be able to hold more light. And I'm not going to call them negative. I'm going to call them denser vibrations. That's better, because then that moves us out of the polarity, the polarity pattern. So we're going to release those denser, slower vibrations so that we can make room for lighter, faster moving vibrations. If we intend that, I'm making room to hold all the light that I can hold. I'm assuming too that we're receiving upgrades to both our spiritual and our physical DNA through this process. So I can't prove that, but I would assume that those would be a part of this whole process.
That's what I kind of skimmed over, that it will affect us on a cellular level to some degree, and we have cellular memory. We have all that stuff sort of built into our DNA, so things might get triggered and things might get activated. So be ready for that. It's the new you. Leave that old stuff go. It's no longer necessary to live in those past moments of pain and trauma and hurt and embarrassment. Let them all go so that you can bring in the new and go forward with that feeling of, let's see how this is going to turn out, as opposed to trying to hold on to the past and living in that that old version of yourself, because the new version is going to be way better.
Just approach the situation with the curiosity of a child. Like,
Exactly.
And I feel like if we all could remember that, it would change how we process what we're experiencing because of the vibration we're in. Well, that's a good piece of advice for me to remember.
It's good for everybody to
be patient and maybe kinder to ourselves.
Yeah, and to others, because other people are going to be feeling this energy and may not know how to deal with it. And so you might see them sort of spinning off or getting anxious or getting upset. And it's going to be your task to step back, kind of ease that, let them feel it, but know they're being affected and not, it's not personal.
That's a good point. I still forget sometimes that we're all in this together.
Yeah.
And I need to be patient and have compassion for my fellow travelers.
Yeah.
And do whatever it is that I can do, like a spontaneous podcast episode about solar flares with my friend Spear, to try and help mitigate some of the angst and the stress and the worry that people might be feeling, and they don't have a reason for why they're feeling it. That's the main reason I wanted to do that today.
Yeah. And I use this term, and I don't know if it's degrading, it's not meant to be, but help the muggles out. They don't know what they're going through. Be patient with them. They're spinning out of control because they don't realize they're being charged with energy and being made to transform. So you may see a lot of pain and anger from them that are releasing. Let them release it.
And so now you get to explain to the people that don't know what a muggle is, what a muggle is.
Muggle term comes from the Harry Potter series, and or no-mages. It's the people who are sort of asleep, going through life, just doing, they get up and they go to work and they come home and they go to bed and they get up and go to work, and they're there to evolve, and they're there for us to bounce off of and to learn and evolve as well. So maybe take it easy on them if you're someone that doesn't know what stones are or what meditation is, and they're having a really rough next couple of days. Just be patient, smile, tell them it's okay. I'm feeling the same thing too, and ease them in. That's the, I guess, place where we're at, where you, the listener, are at, is we're the facilitators, and we've got to help them become the next level of them.
Mm-hmm. And one of the other things that is helpful, that they told me to add back in horsetail silica into my supplementation program, and they've done this periodically over the decades because it helps the body build light receptors into the muscle fibers. Horsetail silica is a plant, an herb that you can get in capsules in pretty much any health food store, that will help give the physical body the physical material it needs to help build that crystalline structure so the body can hold more light. Feel how that feels for yourself, whether it be beneficial to you, and move on that or not as you see fit. We've talked a lot about these solar flares and the cycles, and you have mentioned grounding, which is one of the best things we can do, both physically and energetically. And I'm a big fan of sleeping on an earthing mat. Do you know of any other things that people could do to help themselves through this heightened periods of solar activity? A simple one that I always recommend, and it's a safe suggestion, is to drink more water or non-carbonated fluids. But if you can drink that pure water with maybe a little bit of lemon in it, that's one of the best things you can do for your body. Because why? Because you're a bioelectric being, and water is a conductor. So if you put more water into your physical body, that's going to allow the physical body to process those incoming energies and move them through your central nervous system. So I'm just going to put that out there. And the other thing that came to me was maybe eat a little bit lighter. You don't have to go from eating steak to being a vegetarian.
Right.
I always say just move one level away from where you normally eat. So if you're do one thing, like maybe don't eat fish, maybe go to plant protein.
Right.
That kind of a thing. Because your body will then not be expending all that energy digesting food. You will have that energy to counteract some of the fatigue you're probably feeling.
Right. Also with the water, I have to take in a lot of water for heart palpitations. So I drink a lot of water. And if I don't, I'll drink lemon water and I will pass it out pretty fast. I'm always jumping up. But what I've found is, and make sure you're okay with doing this. I don't want to tell someone to do something, if you could take a pinch of sea salt and just put it in a big glass of water, a big glass, or in a gallon, prepare yourself a little thing and drink that. Because what'll happen is you'll retain the water, and also salt water is a good conductor. So you're upping your conductivity and you might get more receptive to what's coming in. It can't hurt unless you're on a low sodium diet. Just don't do anything crazy. But it helps me retain the water and my body uses it better.
Oh, plus.
As opposed to stressing out and going to the bathroom and all that stuff. Yeah. And it's just a pinch.
Yeah.
We're not doing like a fourth or an eighth of a teaspoon. It's just a little pinch. And I drink these, I say my QT glasses, and I fill them up with water, and they're like 64 ounces. So it's just a pinch in that. You can taste the difference. And like I said, it just helps my body retain water.
I did have a thought that if we could all live in a Faraday cage, wouldn't that stop the stuff from coming in?
That would stop it.
That's what
it's a little more complex. That would shield you. But again, with the process, the universe will present it to you a little stronger and a little stronger. You may not be ready for the next solar flare that comes through, or you may not.
Good point.
It's building us up for what's to come. So, but if you wanted to try it, you could probably do a little Faraday cage for yourself, and just off the top of my head, if we are having a very strong magnetic reaction to a large solar flare, I've always heard that a microwave is a Faraday cage. And so people will put their phones in a microwave and not start it, but when they close the door, it stops all signals, stops all effects. So if we're getting something big in the future and you're worried about it, just, put your phone in there and keep it safe, or anything, credit cards or that might get zapped by it. But that's a cheap Faraday cage that everybody has. You can't fit in it, but you can at least utilize it if we're getting some sort of warning that, electronics may be affected.
Oh, well, see, there you go. Very good practical suggestion for everyone to remember. I know we've covered a lot of ground today, and I just want to ask if you have any final general words of wisdom to share with the people that are listening.
Breathe through this. It's going to happen again and again. We're going to get these. Just breathe through it. Have a little bit more understanding of what you're going through and what other people are going through.
Well, thanks for that. So before we go, I want you to please take a moment to let people know how they can find you.
I'm on Facebook.com/spear that shimmers. All one word.
Perfect. Now, I want to thank you again for this conversation today. I know it's going to help a lot of people, and I can't wait for the next time we sit and talk some spirit.
Sounds good.
Well, that's our time for today. Next week, I'll be answering listener questions, so stay tuned for that one. I want to thank you for listening and continuing to support Evolving Humans. Please feel free to go to evolvinghumanspodcast.com and leave us a message. Your feedback is appreciated, and if you have a question you'd like me to answer on the show, it's not too late to leave me a voicemail.